today. For those of you joining us for the first time, welcome. We're excited for you to be joining us. And today I'd like to introduce you to our speakers, Kirsten, Paris, and Zachary. Hey.
Thanks so much, Cheryl. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. I'm about to share my screen, so just bear with me. Oh. All right. And we should be good to go. So thanks for that welcome, Cheryl. I am Kirsten Schlau. I lead the Salesforce Marketing Cloud practice here. I'm joined with my colleague, Zach from Circonte, as well as our client and partner and teammate, Paris Shah from Lucid Motors. For today's session, we're going to be focusing on considerations for marketing to a global customer base at scale. We know that customers crave and expect personalized communications wherever they are, and so sometimes language, culture, privacy laws, so on and so forth, is really important to consider when it comes to your marketing strategy. So in this session, you're going to hear firsthand on how we do that. Before we get started, though, we did want to just I think reiterate some housekeeping things of that. This is going to be recorded. You're going to have access to it. If you have any questions along the way, feel free to use the chat or the Q&A feature, and we'll try to get to as many as possible. If there's any that we aren't able to get to during today's presentation, we can definitely follow up afterwards. So we're excited to get started. So again, here is all three of us, the gang, the three stooges, however you like to think of us. Definitely a special thank you to our sponsors. This is definitely a team effort and a community effort. So not only from the folks at Circonte, but also Salesforce and all of our other sponsors. We really, really appreciate the support. You'll notice in between the agenda tracks, there's also resources and virtual booths. So please be sure to check out the various sponsors at these at their booths virtually and learn a little bit more about what they can offer. We've got some really great sponsors and offer some really wonderful plugins or just support or tools of just how to get emails up the doors, even specifically for Salesforce Marketing Cloud, which is super helpful. So as I mentioned, everyone is expecting personalized experiences. We probably are getting, honestly, more personalized experiences than we realize. A lot of the time we only realize that, though, when it's not done well. So again, just on a, individual scale, that's important. But again, when you think about it globally and thinking about specific customs, cultures, it's even more important to get that right. So before we get started, I just want to level set us on sort of the three main approaches to scaling global marketing teams and what those look like. So with a centralized global team, which is something that a lot of folks approach in their way, is really the technology is owned by the global teams. They provide the local teams templates and services to help with execution and delivery, which is great in the sense that the solution prioritizes like the entire company's data governance and digital marketing initiatives, but there's definitely some limitations. So one of those being local demands. Local demands are not always met, especially if the team is centralized in one location. Sometimes those local needs get a little bit deprioritized or ignored. And so again, that can be a challenge. Also the idea of reduced agility for the local marketing team. So again, because everything is centrally located, for those local teams, they may not be able to get the support as quickly as possible because you're part of a queue. And again, that prioritization, there may be some latency in your communications and just that overall process of making sure that everything is aligned, especially when it comes to translations and so on and so forth. And then lastly here, when it comes to challenges with the centralized global team, is this idea of disorganized solutions, meaning that local teams, a lot of times, have to talk to several different teams to get them, what they need to support the field marketing efforts. So again, those are some key challenges. The other one that we commonly see is this independent local marketing teams. Absolutely wonderful for those local teams because it ensures those teams are getting the support and the needs as quickly as possible to support some key initiatives quickly. But this too solution is far from perfect. So it's not scalable, right? You can't necessarily afford to have a tech team or these specialized teams in every region. That can definitely be cost prohibitive. There's also likely the chance for work duplication, right? So everyone's doing the same thing in different places. They're operating in silos. We know what that looks like. And then also, I think one of the biggest concerns for me, and this is maybe because I just am always focused on the data, because I think data is just so important, especially first party data as we're moving to, no more cookies and first party data just being absolute gold, is the lack of data governance, right? If every region is doing data differently, and I know like looking at Paris's face, he probably would be a little nervous because one of his main focuses at Lucid is data, is that like if everyone's doing all their own different things, right? Like what does that look like in your marketing systems? What does that look like in your sales CRM systems? You're going to have tons of dirty data, which is just going to, really leave you handicapped. And then last but not least, when it comes to those independent teams, is that they're never really truly autonomous. Like they're always going to probably need some type of support from the larger central team. And so again, just a little bit difficult to really achieve those. So in order to really effectively market at a global scale, having your company, global data governance strategy that provides local enablement is I think the recommended approach. So it's really a hybrid of both of those that we just went over, both the centralized global team from a data governance perspective, but also making sure that you're giving your local teams the support and enable them, empower them by having, really flexible frameworks, but again, still having frameworks in place so no one goes off, and do something too crazy. So this advantage of being able to focus on both marketing without worrying about, other means from a data hygiene perspective, and making sure that you're, what do I want to say, like your uniform when it comes to a lot of the things you're doing is super, super helpful. So hopefully that was helpful of just level setting of how teams typically set up when it comes and just understanding. So for today, we're really going to be focusing on that number 3 hybrid approach of how Lucid is able to have that global governance, but still have a local enablement approach. So again, so when the local teams want to be able to do stuff, they can still do it, but at the same time, everyone's still following a bit of the same tune, if we were to think about it as music. So the key things that we're going to talk about today are email preference center and consent management. What does that look like? So Paris is going to go over a solution that we've developed to help support that and at scale, which is the biggest thing. And then Zach's going to go into building email templates for localization and what are some considerations and how we do that. And you're really going to be able to see hands-on screenshots from the platform, from Marketing Cloud, of what we've done and how we built. So in the hopes that you can maybe take some of those steps, those tips and tricks, and implement them in your future programs. And then last but not least, I'll close this out with global email production processes and governance. Not as exciting as the other two, but again, having processes and governance is really, really important, as we mentioned, just to make sure things that go as efficiently as possible, and then also at scale. So without further ado, I'd love to hand it over to you, Paris.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. So I am the marketing automation manager here at Lucid Motors. So today I would be covering this topic of email preference and consent management. So some of us know that when it comes to like marketing cloud or email marketing in general, the platform has to kind of, we need to consider some standards like can spam, and not just can spam, but even like GDPR and then castle. And then on top of that, what we need to do is we likely need to update the physical address, and maybe even we need to change the business name that is listed depending on the local region laws. So we had to deal with some of these requirements, especially when we recently expanded towards the European markets. So we had to keep up with the local laws and regulations depending upon, like the country. Like for example, some countries within Europe, they have specific laws that they want us to kind of follow. So therefore what we have done is we have, with the help of Sir Kante, our implementation partners, what we have done is we have built a simple yet scalable solution to make it easier for our marketing team to kind of perform and execute the marketing campaigns across the global markets. So what we'll do is we'll move forward to the next slide, which is a task. So what's the task here? The task is like to develop a solution to support the global efforts and make sure that we are legally compliant across all the markets and the local laws. So what we have done is, we have made like a very unique approach to solve this problem. So what we have done is we have, with the help of different marketing cloud core components, we have built this solution. So the core components that we are using here is a contact builder, and then we are making use of amp scripting, and then we are also making use of the content builder. So what we'll see here is we'll see how all these three things magically come together and then solve this problem. So the first thing is the contact builder, right? So what is contact builder? Contact builder is a, we have created a data extension which captures the, like a context country, and then the preferred locale, what language do they prefer their emails come in, and then even what language would they like to see their, like preferences in the on the preference center. So that's the contact builder part of it. And then the amp scripting part of it takes care of the dynamic components. So what we have done is we have like done the dynamic coding within the amp scripting, which actually has a like looks up has a lookup table to this data extension and then serves the appropriate content on the email. And then the third part is the content builder part. So what we have done is like we have built a content block that can be reused across all the emails in all the markets. So that's our content builder. Like we have built a content block, and all the marketing email campaign manager, what they have to do is they just have to like do a simple drag and drop into the email, and then that will bring everything together. So the benefits of this solution, so I think we think like there are two key benefits of this solution. The first thing is it's like easy administration, right? So the management and the global and, parent business unit level, it becomes like easy to manage. The second benefit of this solution is the minimal interaction from the email campaign manager perspective. So the email campaign manager, all they have to do is just drag and drop. They don't have to worry about any technical details like what is the backend logic for AMP scripting or the data extension. So it's very simple for them. So now what we'll do is we'll move to the next slide, which is can spam requirement. So the can spam requirement, so, let us just level set here before we even start discussing this, right? So as we know, with marketing cloud email platform, what it does is it tries to validate all the emails before we deploy and make sure that each and every email is compliant with the can spam regulation, for example, right? So uh, what happens is the system looks for things like business name, it looks for a physical address, and all these things are set up within the admin organization settings within our platform. And not just that, it also looks for the unsubscribe link and make sure like every email has this unsubscribe link either to the profile center or to the unsubscribe URL. So therefore, in our solution, we have created a global footer that has all these important fields built into this footer. And not just that, but it also kind of has an additional room to make further customizations with the use of amp script. So that's how we have kind of built this footer containing all these key elements within the footer itself. Now moving forward to the contact builder, right? So what we have is we begin with the contact builder. So what happens is we the contact builder, the data extensions, which are nothing but the tables within marketing cloud, we are capturing some key details about the customers like the country, the preferred locale and language, all these are actually captured within this table for each of the customers. So let's say if you were to send an email out to the European customers, there would be a corresponding country and the locale associated with each of the customer. So when the email gets deployed and delivered to the European market, each customer sees the email and the preferences in their own locale. So that's something that the contact builder and data extensions help us do. And then what we do is like, we make sure that all the marketing activities and function and all the contact information is kind of, the data integrity is present within our data extension. So that is something that contact builder helps us do. And then as we expand into new regions and new countries, what we do is, we with the help of data extensions, it allows us to configure the markets. So for example, there are some markets where we take the reservations, and then in some markets we don't take the reservations. So according to the markets, we have to serve the contents. And so that is what our contact builder portion helps us achieve. Now moving forward to the AMP scripting. So what we do here in the AMP scripting is that, we have built in the dynamic logic. So let's look at like what our dynamic logic involves. So what we do is, we have developed custom AMP script to pull all this necessary information about our customers. So all the, like the fields that we just talked about, like country, locale. So our AMP script dynamically looks up into this data extension and then pulls up the required fields. And then for each of the item in the footer, what we do is, we our AMP script pulls up this information and then keys in this locale and language within our footer. So when the preferences, when someone clicks on the unsubscribe link, our footer, based on this AMP script logic, it makes sure that they land in their local, like their local unsubscribe page. And then the last but not the least is the error handling. So error handling is something that we have built into the solution. So because this solution is entirely reliant on the subscriber having properly defined value for country, error handling, we have, that is something that we have added to the script. So in case if there is a missing value or something, we want to make sure that instead of going onto the blank unsubscribe page, we want to make sure that, we at least deliver the, default version of our unsubscribe page. So it's a lot of logic that we have built in here within our AMP script block. Now moving forward to the third element, which is the content builder. So what we are, the content builder, we have built a content block. So our content block is a combination of text and the HTML. So what we do is like, what we have done is, we have created this content block and added our custom AMP script within this content block with the required, like fields, the logic and the styling. And the AMP script logic for the content block is like, it's hidden within the div. So it's basically, it's like a hidden element. So whenever an email campaign manager goes and tries to build an email, they don't see this complex logic. So that allows them to focus on the important part of the email, uh, like the creative and the, the copy part of the email, without having to worry about this backend complex logic. So that is something that we have built in. And then what we have done is, we have then saved our content block into the shared folder, so that our campaign managers can actually browse the footer content folder and then just do an easy drag and drop into any of the email template. And then what we have done is, we have also added like the main global template. So moving forward, anytime a user creates an email from the global template, this new dynamic footer gets added in automatically without them having to do any manual steps. So that's our content, builder part of it actually. And then let's see like how it looks in real life. So yeah, let's have a look at that. So here, as we can see here, um, there are two different customers. So one belongs to the US and one belongs to the Canada. And then we can see their physical address gets changed dynamically within the footer. So that's how simple it is actually. So we do like our emails across the globe, and with the help of all these elements we are able to achieve the the requirements for local laws and regulations, plus deliver like a good customer experience for our customers. Yeah, so I think that's from my end, and I think next portion is for the templates. So I think I'll pass it over to Zach.
Zach, it looks like you're on mute still, so just go ahead, and I think you're good to go now.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. It's still morning here. So I'll talk a little bit about how you can sort of design your templates to sort of support this localization effort. 65% of global consumers have answered that they prefer their content in their native language, even if it's poor quality. So as you can see, the localization of your content is very important. And to support that localized footer solution, we've built some content builder templates that kind of allow that same flexibility in supporting localized content in the main body of the email itself. So Content Builder, for those of you who don't know, it functions as sort of a content library within your Marketing Cloud. It provides a way to host and organize all your various content directly within Marketing Cloud, and it allows you to use that content across various channels, email, SMS, cloud pages, social. Your content blocks can include, or your content can include content blocks, layouts, templates, videos, documents. Using Content Builder, we've built a series of templates that allow the local teams to leverage these templates and quickly build their emails without much HTML knowledge. And they do this using sort of that drag and drop functionality that's built into Content Builder. So a crucial sort of way, a sort of framework that helps a lot when sort of building these templates is sort of this atomic design approach. It's a mental model kind of based on chemistry that kind of helps you think about user interfaces in your email, your designs cohesively, but also as a collection of parts. For an email, we can think of these components in sort of the following ways, right? You've got text and images, which sort of represent atoms, and content blocks, which are a collection of atoms and represent, or like a molecule. And your layouts kind of fall into this organism thing. So it might be a collection of content blocks. And all together, you put that together and you've got your template or your email. Things to consider when you're thinking about how to break your content down into these various atoms and molecules. What are the items that will be used over and over again? What are the items that are nuanced, perhaps for just a specific region or country? Of the items that will be used globally, can they be locked down? Do you want to allow the local teams to edit those items? Answering these questions will help you better organize your template development and overall organization of your content within Content Builder. So here are some of the key reasons why Content Builder is effective when it comes to this global marketing and localization strategy. The major one, I think, is being able to break down and lock down your content areas. You can do this to sort of enforce compliance. So in the case of our dynamic footer, by locking that, we're able to prevent people from removing things that are legally required or including things that are not part of that sort of designed footer. So we can do the same thing with the email templates. You may want to allow certain blocks to be editable or removable, so that your local teams can swap out the sort of placeholder language you have in the template with their local language. This sort of practice is sort of essential when you want to get user adoption in these local markets. So while Content Builder templates are great and we think it's a great solution, it's not 100% foolproof. We wanted to kind of highlight that here. As you can see from these list of clients, almost every sort of major client is supported at either an A or a B level. essentially this means that if it, an A means that the template has been thoroughly tested, it's fully supported. And B means it's not been thoroughly tested. It's assumed to be functional. Any defects found are investigated and fixed. If a client's not listed on this presentation, on this slide, or on this page rather, it's not natively supported by the templates. And so your mileage may vary a little bit, and it may require some additional expertise in designing your HTML or your CSS for your template. So once you've set up your templates, it's a breeze to create an email campaign using that template. Content Builder has wonderful WYSIWYG tools that allow just about anyone to put together an email very quickly. You can easily update your text. You can resize it, recolor it, add links. You can add images to the template. You can adjust padding on elements to sort of style things a bit. This allows us to kind of create that template as a shell, and then anyone can bring over approved content blocks and add them to that template, copy imagery from within your marketing cloud, any images you've uploaded and sort of shared for use. And that, you can see the result here is you've got a template that can be edited by, a marketer without deep HTML knowledge and quickly kind of push to market. So now I'll hand it back to Kirsten to talk about email production and governance.
Thanks, Zach. Appreciate that. And I think what you all shared today around dynamic footers and templates hopefully will inspire the group to maybe have some of these solutions brought in-house for their organizations. And so, as I mentioned, not as fun, not as exciting as solutions, but still just equally as important is really then thinking about, in addition to how do you make sure that you're able to reduce risks with your footers by having, that dynamic footer, being able to more quickly send out emails, and again, making sure that they are controlled and, go out error-free from a rendering perspective, consistent with branding and tone, all of those different things with templates, super important. But then we also need to think about how do we get an email out the door, and what does that governance process look like? So ensuring that your communications go on time and error-free is, I think, one of the most important challenges that any marketer faces. I've been in this industry for quite some time. I'm not going to tell you how long, because then you'll be able to figure out how old I actually am. But moreover, trying to do that across various time zones and languages can definitely be make it all that more complicated. Zach and myself, and even Paris, we had the luxury earlier this year to build some emails in the Arabic language, and just again having traditionally writing from left to right, and then trying to go ahead and build those, and then having your keys go backwards was definitely even a mind shift for Zach, who is one of our smartest folks here at Sercante. And so again, there's a lot of complications and challenges that go with that. So while it's challenging and complicated, just as a whole, we're definitely going to focus into these key to success when it comes to, what does your governance and email production process need to look like? So we're going to go through your standard operating procedures, or SOPs, what that proper tool set could look like, and then just overall change management and governance. So when we think about standard operating procedures, right, the idea here and the value of them is that they can provide clear and standard understanding of how you get emails out the door. It can reduce the stress of your teams. It can also allow for cross-channel and cross-team collaboration, which is super important, and also increase the overall quality of your emails that you're sending out. Of course, resulting in reduced mistakes, as well as enabling you to control quality and make sure that your emails are going out as perfect as possible. So you may be thinking about, like, where do I begin when it comes to these standard operating procedures, and how does one establish that? So I think the first step is documentation of your current state production workflow. So this is something that Paris, myself, and the rest of the Lucid team, and Zach, we all went through and said, okay, let's just document what is going on today. How are we doing it? What does email production workflow look like? And, what are those, steps that we're doing? And so when you think about an email production workflow in general, what is that? It's really that choreographed series of steps to enable marketing teams to execute an email from concept, from the creative, and then all the way through to inbox. So on the example on the right-hand side, we just show like some very high level steps that could happen. So from strategy and brief development through content and and copy creation, through the design with creative, making sure, and step number 4 is really critical, stakeholder sign off. You really want to make sure that everyone's aligned before then you go ahead into creative, QA and proofing. And then of course, handing off for build. So again, these are just high level milestones that you can do, but as part of that current state of documentation workflows, you're probably going to also see gaps in your process or areas where things are fuzzy, or you realize there's no one person owning that, or maybe you see that one person is owning way too many things, and that's either slowing you down, it's causing errors. Like, let's think through that and let's make sure we can distribute the responsibility as equally as possible. And so when you're doing that, once you document it, you think you have in a good place, then the next thing to do is really make sure that you're reviewing with key stakeholders and aligning on timing and making sure that you have agreements. And it can take baby steps, right? So in an ideal world, maybe everyone wants an email to get out the door, after handoff and approval within a 2-day period. Well, that requires planning and teamwork. Successful organizations that stick with those processes, that stick with those timing expectations and make little exception, are the ones that are going to be successful. Because what happens is, and we've all been there before, you get pressure maybe from another group, someone more senior, to say, we need to get this email out the door. Well, what happens is you stay up late, you cut corners, you maybe don't do that last round of QA, and an email goes out the door wrong. And that senior member within your organization is then pretty upset because something went out the door incorrectly. So again, where you can be pushing back saying, yeah, happy to do that for you, but we need creative by this day. We need sign off by that date in order. And then you basically start teaching them, and maybe in a sense, making it a little bit more painful for people, but understanding why those things are happening and why you need the time to avoid those errors is really, really important. So I'll get off my soapbox there and just also show you all, this is just also another example. So in addition to maybe writing it out in a, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps, also a visual flow can be super helpful. This is just an example of one, something that I've done also with clients in particular in the past, especially when it's like, well, we changed only a word, we changed a link. Why do we need to re-QA it again? And showing them the time that it would take every time you're making a change is also can be very super powerful. And then folks sort of understand that, yes, it's just one tweak here and there, but every time you're going back in and editing something, you have to go through the entire QA process. So then when we think about proper tool set, ensuring you're using the proper tools to help with collaboration so you can work smarter and not harder is just as important as the actual process that you're documenting. So these are some examples of tools that Lucid Motors is using. They're using smart sheets for content planning and calendaring across various groups in the organization. They're using Figma for design and Litmus for email rendering. While Confluence is a system of record for documentation of the processes and turnaround time. So again, if anyone said, like, what is the source of truth? What is the process? What are the steps? What is the SLAs, service level expectations of what that looks like? That can be found there. And then Jira is really the place where we're managing the handoff between creative and production. Jira is a wonderful resource. And I know some folks might be like, Jira, isn't that more for like IT and web dev folks? Well, it can also adapt for email as well. And it's a really, I think, great tool, or a tool like that where you can track all your comments, your changes, the handing back and forth, and the process. So you can also then start seeing from a calculation perspective where things are slowing down from a velocity, where are there edits, where are there errors that are happening, where did things get off the track, and less about pointing of fingers, but more of a like, hey, how can we improve and move forward in the future? And of course, we also have teams. It's very tempting to give feedback via Teams. I see Pars smiling a little bit there and nodding his head. It's very, very tempting to be like, let me just go ahead and just do this quick little thing here. But then the problem is if you are going ahead and maybe doing some QA feedback in Teams, it's not getting documented in Jira. It's harder to follow. Someone maybe missed up or earlier on a thread of something of a long chat, tends to have a lot of conversations going on. One person misses something, an email goes out the door wrong because we didn't see that change. So again, while it's tempting, Teams really should be used for just quick conversations. Hey, what's the latest status? But any of the actual feedback should really be in Jira. And that's the best, I would say, way that we've been able to maximize success with our clients, with Lucid, as well as the internal Lucid team. So the key to any tool set, not saying that you have to go out today and purchase all these tools. Maybe you're, a Microsoft shop, maybe you're a Slack shop. Slack is also another tool that a lot of our clients are using, but that you have to think through the keys of being accessed by all team members, right? So whatever tools you're using, making sure that the appropriate team members have access to them and have the appropriate level of access. That's sort of seems like a no-brainer, but it happens. And then so you also have to think through, like, okay, if this is a tool that we're using, how many people need it? How many seats? What is it going to cost me? So again, I think that's the thing. It's not that people want to restrict, it's just the cost factor. So thinking about a tool set that's going to be scalable for your organization, and like, can you afford it? What does the budget look like? Also ensuring a tool that's easy to use. If it has a poor user interface, if it's confusing, if it's not intuitive, people are probably not going to use that tool. And so there, in lies a problem with user adoption. And then last but not least, integration. So the more tools that you can integrate with each other, the better. For example, the creative team probably lives in Figma. They don't really necessarily want to go anywhere else. So the fact that they can go ahead and say, hey, here's the link to the file. Someone takes that link, it integrates Figma and Jira together. You can go ahead, take that link, put it in your Jira ticket. So then your folks that are building those emails, your marketing managers, they're just operating in Jira. They can easily go click through, and they're not having to have, going from screen to screen to screen. As you all know, right, Marketing Cloud in general, sometimes you have 2 or 3 screens of Marketing Cloud open because you don't want to have to jump back and forth and lose your place. So then having those screens as well as all these other tools can be a little cumbersome. So having integration is super important to that. All right. So then lastly, without, proper change management and governance, I sort of mentioned user adoption on the other screen. If you don't have those things, then like everything that you've done thus far is really going to be done in vain. So just to level set on what I'm trying to, thank you. Change management even means is, it's a collective term for really the approaches to prepare and support and help individuals. Change management is sometimes one of the last forgotten, one of the last things to do. It's like, oh yeah, we should probably think about that. So I've been, around the block for quite some time. You'll have organizations that are so excited to do this, but then they forget, like, oh yeah, we need to tell people internally that we're doing this. And we need to think about the rollout plan. We need to be intentional with that. And email governance is also the term, just from a level set perspective, of making sure that your organization is protected from a business, from a reputation, from a compliance perspective. So when Paris was talking about GDPR, CASL, CAN-SPAM, those are all intertwined, but also like thinking about it from what are those internal set of rules and guidelines written specifically for your organization, similar to like data, right, and data privacy and what you're going to share and not share. So here's just a quick example of change management checklist of, defining your project vision and outcomes. So that could be user adoption, reduction in email errors, time to market. So the time it takes from conception to launch of an email could be really great goals. And then also, thinking about that communication plan, right? Like, how are we going to roll this out? How are we going to get everyone on board? How are we going to ensure that everyone's following? Do you need to have someone in charge that's the go-to to say, hey, we didn't follow the process, we need to, right? Someone that is a bit of the messenger, the stickler for, hey, you're not following the rules, but, doing it in a way that doesn't make people angry. And then also just, making sure that if things are, maybe falling off track where we need to change and optimize, that we're open to doing that. And last but not least, I'm not going to read off all of these tips, but again, some just effective ways to think through data and governance policies. The first one, sort of a favorite, is just like make sure folks are aware of them, right? When it comes to that. Another one that I love to call out here is just thinking through, how are you transferring data? How are you sharing information? I don't think it's as commonplace as it was back in the day, but when folks were thinking about email lists, I would have so many clients like sending me their email lists over email. Please do not do that, right? Like email, we like to think of it as being secure, but it's not always. So that's data that you're sending over, right? Think about if you do need to transfer data, if you do need to share a list of emails, if you need to send a list of people's information that's not PII, think about a more secure way to do it. Don't do it over email. And then, of course, another thing on here is just make sure you're reviewing your policies often, and then making sure that everyone's just always in the loop there. So hopefully those are some helpful tips and tricks when it comes to considerations for email production process as well as data governance. All right. So hopefully that was helpful and insightful and all of the things. Would love to open it up to speakers, not speakers. Well, yeah, I can open up to y'all as well. But to the audience to see if you had any questions, comments, anything that you want to share in the chat, QA, definitely would love to open it up for that. So we'll see if any questions come trickling in. But in the meantime, if anyone's wanting to know some more information or you have additional questions, you can also see the ticker that's now showing. We've got a Genius Bar. So you'll get the folks such as myself, Zachary, and other members of the team throughout this week. You can go ahead, sign up for a Genius Bar session if you need, a specific question, you want to dive into this topic more. Maybe your organization is not using Marketing Cloud yet, but you want to, maybe get some opinions from the likes of Zach or others, happy to do so. Thank you so much for the comments. Glad it was a good presentation and good to follow along. We really enjoyed having you all.
Thank you, Kirsten, Harris, and Zachary. It was an amazing session. It looks like we have a few minutes left for Q&A if anybody has any. When it comes to putting together a tech stack, which software would you suggest for email proofing so multiple stakeholders can make a suggestion? I don't know if that's Zach or Kirsten, if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, great question. So, we did mention Litmus. That's more for the email rendering perspective. We also have Stencil that has a couple sessions. I think they have one session today, and they're also part of the sponsors and resources that you can check out. They also have a great solution around putting that email together. What does it look like? The proofing, the building, and it integrates with any technology stack, including Marketing Cloud. So definitely would encourage you to check those folks out. And then also, I just happened to be at a Monster Bash last week, put on by Inbox Monsters. In addition to deliverability, they also are releasing new features and functionality around rendering and some of the proofing and building stuff. So I definitely would say check out Stencil, as well as, if you want to, compare them with others. Inbox just came out with some new feature functionality, but Stencil's definitely been around for a while. Definitely a great tool to check out.
Thank you. Any last questions? If we have, maybe we might have time for one more. Because they will cut us off in 2 minutes. So I don't see any more questions coming in. So that kind of concludes the session today. Thank you so much for joining us. Special shout out to our sponsors for their support. Without them, our dreaming couldn't be possible. Make sure to pop over to their sponsor booths and learn more about what they do. We have some great sessions on Pardot Lightning and Email Lightning Builder coming up in a few minutes. Otherwise, head over to the sponsor booths, check out the agenda, and find the full list of things happening. So thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you all.